The council chamber of the Galactic Empire was filled with voices, sharp and arrogant. "Terran space must remain forbidden," declared the High Chancellor, his robe glowing with the mark of power. "For centuries, no ship has entered that region and returned. But the stories of humans are only myths, ancient lies meant to frighten weak minds." His words echoed across the hall, and the nobles nodded in agreement, their faces proud. One commander, a scar across his jaw, raised his hand. "Then why fear it at all?" "High Chancellor," he asked, his voice low but challenging, "if Terran space is nothing but an empty void, then why not claim it, expand our empire, prove once and for all that humans are dead, forgotten and powerless?" The chamber grew restless. Whispers spread like fire. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed, and a cold smile spread across his lips. "Yes, perhaps it is time we show the galaxy the truth. We will send our strongest fleet into Terran space. They will return victorious. And the galaxy will know the Empire fears nothing." As the decision spread through the Empire, ships prepared. Thousands of them. Sleek cruisers, heavy dreadnoughts, carriers filled with fighters. The admirals boasted, "The humans are long gone. Nothing waits for us but empty stars." Yet in the shadows, soldiers whispered, "But what if the legends are true? What if something still sleeps there?" The fleet launched, a storm of engines tearing through the void. Stars bent under their passage. Systems fled before their might. They crossed borders no one dared approach, past broken satellites and ghost stations. Finally, they reached the edge of Terran space, a silent border marked by nothing but darkness. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Korvac stood tall, his eyes burning with pride. "Forward," he commanded. "This so-called forbidden space will bow to us." But as the ships crossed the line, strange things began to happen. "Admiral, our scanners are failing," a young officer cried, fingers racing over controls. "Navigation systems are blind. We cannot read the stars. It's like they are being swallowed." "Impossible," Korvac snapped. "Run it again. It must be a malfunction." But it was no malfunction. One by one, ships reported the same. Systems dying, signals twisted into echoes. The fleet slowed, engines thrumming nervously, and silence pressed against every hull like the deep breath of a predator. "Do you feel it?" whispered one captain to another over the comms. "It's as if we are being watched," Korvac snarled. "Nonsense. Humans are dust. Nothing but shadows. Continue forward." Hours passed. The darkness grew heavier. Some crew swore they saw lights flicker outside their windows, shapes moving in the void. "Stars do not move," whispered a frightened navigator. "Then what are those?" The first real twist came suddenly. A warning cry echoed through the fleet. "Unidentified signal detected." The officer on the flagship trembled. "It's coming from ahead." "Something is there." A shadow appeared, a single ship drifting slowly. Its hull was scarred, old, rusted, but it moved with precision. The Empire soldiers laughed at first. "That is what the galaxy feared, one broken relic. Target it," Korvac ordered. But when weapons locked on, alarms shrieked. "Systems offline, we cannot fire, Admiral. It has disabled us somehow." "How?" Korvac shouted, rage and fear clashing in his voice. "That thing is ancient. It cannot—" Before he finished, the alien officers froze. A human voice cut through every ship's channel, cold and calm. "You were warned not to enter. Leave now, or be erased." Every soldier stared in shock. "It speaks our tongue," one whispered. "How, after all these centuries?" Korvac clenched his fists, arrogance burning through his fear. "Fire everything. I don't care how. Destroy that ship." But his commands meant nothing, because as the fleet prepared to act, the darkness shifted. Out of the void, more ships appeared. Larger, stronger, their designs sharp and terrible. They did not glow with Empire pride. They radiated silence and power. Weapons hummed with energy that felt older than the stars. Dozens, then hundreds, their presence alone crushing the arrogance of the Empire. "On the bridge," one officer whispered. "Admiral, those ships, their energy readings are impossible. They are older than our Empire, and yet their power is beyond measure. How can this be?" The human voice spoke again. "You were told this place was forbidden." It was not empty. It was waiting. Panic rippled through the fleet. Some captains screamed for retreat, but the dreadnoughts were already surrounded. Terran ships closed in, faster than thought, weapons glowing. The first blast tore through the Empire's lead cruiser, ripping it apart in silence. Then another and another. Ships that once stood as symbols of power vanished like dust before a storm. The fleet that had entered proud was now broken prey. Admiral Korvac fell to his knees, the truth heavy on his chest. "The legends were true," he whispered. "Humans never died. They only waited." The last image his crew saw was the Terran warships surrounding them, a wall of iron and fire. Then the darkness swallowed everything. Back in the council chamber of the Empire, silence ruled. Messengers had returned, pale and shaking. Their words spread terror. "The humans live, and they are stronger than ever." The nobles who once laughed now trembled. They realized too late their arrogance had doomed them all. For Terran space was never forbidden by chance. It was a warning, one the Empire had ignored, and now the galaxy would pay the price. The Empire fleet drifted deeper into the dark, the silence pressing against every hull like a living thing. On the flagship, Admiral Korvac stood rigid, his face pale, though his voice tried to sound firm. "We hold our ground," he declared. "This is nothing but fear spreading among weak hearts. The humans are long gone. Do not let shadows control you." But his officers exchanged nervous glances. A young lieutenant whispered, "Sir, the scanners are blind again. We cannot read anything beyond a few kilometers. It is as if the stars themselves are being hidden from us." Korvac slammed his fist against the console. "Run diagnostics, there must be interference." "There is no interference we know of," the lieutenant replied, his voice trembling. "It feels like something is blocking us on purpose." Across the fleet, crews whispered. Some swore they felt vibrations through the hull, as if great engines moved unseen in the void. Others claimed they saw shapes shifting outside their windows, shadows of ships that vanished when they turned to look. Fear spread like poison through the ranks. "Admiral," another officer spoke, his voice shaking. "Permission to speak freely." Korvac narrowed his eyes. "Speak. We should turn back. This place is wrong. If those stories about Terran space are true—" "Silence!" Korvac roared, his pride louder than his fear. "The Empire bows to no ghosts. Humans are myths. You will obey your orders." A sudden alarm cut him off. "Unidentified signal detected," cried a technician. "It's faint but moving fast, approaching from the starless zone ahead." Korvac's jaw tightened. "Put it on the main display." The screen flickered. At first there was only darkness, then slowly a shadow emerged. It was not one ship this time, but 3, small by comparison to the Empire's massive cruisers, but they moved with terrifying grace. Their designs were sharp and angular, their hulls scarred yet gleaming with hidden power. The crew fell silent, eyes wide. One officer whispered, "They're watching us." The comm crackled to life. A voice, calm and steady, filled the air. It was human again. "You were warned," the voice said. "You will not pass." The fleet froze. The admirals across the network exchanged hurried words. Some demanded to open fire, others urged retreat. But Korvac's pride burned hotter than his fear. "Charge weapons," he ordered. "Show them the strength of the Empire." "Admiral," the weapons officer said, panic spreading, "the targeting systems are unresponsive. It's like their ships are jamming every lock. We cannot fire." "Then fire manually," Korvac snapped. "I don't care how, just fire." Before any shot was launched, the human ships moved. They did not approach quickly. They drifted slowly, deliberately, circling the Empire's fleet like predators testing prey. The silence in space was unbearable, broken only by the faint hum of Terran engines. "Admiral, their energy levels," gasped a scientist, staring at the readings. "It makes no sense. These ships are small, but their output is greater than our largest dreadnought. It should not be possible." Korvac clenched his teeth. "They are bluffing," he said, though his voice wavered. "This is nothing but tricks." Then the human voice returned. "Turn back, or you will not leave at all." One of the younger captains on a nearby cruiser could not take it. His voice crackled over the comms. "This is nonsense. I will burn them myself." His ship lurched forward, engines roaring. He launched a barrage of plasma fire into the void. The shots lit the darkness, blazing bright. For a moment, it looked as if the human ships would be hit, but in a blink they shifted. The blasts passed harmlessly into nothing. The alien crew gasped. They moved faster than light itself. The humans did not return fire, not yet. They simply drifted closer, their silence louder than any weapon. The captain who had attacked began to scream over comms. "They are inside my systems. They are overriding my engines." His ship spun helplessly, weapons dead. The crew panicked, and then the entire cruiser went dark. A moment later, it vanished from the sensors as if swallowed by the void. Every officer in the fleet stared at the empty space where the cruiser had been. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Korvac's voice cracked. "What just happened?" "They erased it," whispered the lieutenant. "Not destroyed, erased." The comms opened again. The human voice, colder than before. "This is your last warning." Fear turned to chaos across the fleet. Captains shouted, some begging for retreat, others demanding to strike, but none could act. Their systems flickered, their weapons failed, and their engines pulsed with instability. It was as if Terran ships were holding their lives in the palm of a hand. A surprising twist came then. Instead of attacking, the humans pulled back slightly, creating a path in the darkness. The voice spoke once more. "Leave now, live, stay, and none will remain to tell the tale." The admirals argued fiercely. Some called it a trap. Others begged to retreat while they still could. Korvac stood frozen, his pride warring with the growing dread in his heart. If they returned empty-handed, the Empire would call him a coward. But if they stayed, he feared none would survive. On the lower decks, soldiers whispered in terror. "The humans do not kill without reason. They gave us a choice," others replied. "But if we run, they will hunt us anyway." In the end, Korvac lifted his head, forcing steel into his voice. "We advance," he declared. "The Empire does not bend to threats. We will break through their lines and prove their weakness." But even as his words echoed, the fleet shuddered, systems dimmed, lights flickered, alarms blared across every ship. The humans had not fired, but already they were tightening the grip, and in that silence, every soul in the fleet felt the truth. Terran space was not forbidden because of myth. It was forbidden because something waited here, something older, something stronger, something patient enough to let arrogance come to it as the human ships shifted once more, surrounding the Empire's fleet in a slow and perfect circle. One thought consumed every mind on board. They had not stepped into empty space. They had stepped into a trap carved into the stars. The circle of Terran ships closed slowly, their movements calm and deliberate. On the flagship of the Empire's fleet, Admiral Korvac gripped the edge of the command table, his knuckles white. The silence pressed against him harder than any weapon. His officers waited for orders, their faces pale. "They're playing with us," muttered one of the captains through the comms. "They could have destroyed us already." "But they haven't." "Why?" the human voice returned, steady and unshaken. "You were warned twice. This is your final choice. Leave now, or be erased from existence," Korvac snarled, anger covering the fear twisting in his stomach. "Do not be fooled by their threats. They are few and we are many. The Empire does not retreat." "We strike, Admiral," the lieutenant at his side whispered nervously. "Our systems are unstable if we attack. We risk collapse, then we risk it," Korvac barked. "Signal the fleet, all ships. Fire on my command!" The order raced across the comms. and engines flared as cruisers and dreadnoughts aimed weapons at the Terran ships. The air in every command deck was thick with fear and sweat. Officers shouted status reports, alarms buzzed, and lights flickered. The Empire's pride held them still. "Fire!" Korvac roared, energy lanced out into the darkness. Beams and plasma filling the void with blazing color. Missiles streaked forward like falling stars. The entire fleet shook with the power of its own strike. For a moment, hope returned. The alien crews held their breath. Then they watched in horror as every blast vanished. The Terran ships shimmered, their hulls glowing faintly. The attacks dissolved before touching them, swallowed by invisible shields that bent reality itself. "They're not even scratched," gasped the weapons officer. "Our strongest firepower didn't touch them." On the comms, laughter erupted from the crew of one Empire vessel, but it was laughter mixed with terror. "We are ants throwing dust at a storm." The Terran ships moved. Their weapons did not fire beams or missiles. Instead, light spread along their hulls, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then, in silence, a single lance of energy cut through space. It struck one of the Empire's cruisers. The ship didn't explode, it didn't burn, it simply vanished. Torn apart atom by atom, a scream echoed across the comms. They erased the Vanguard. "It's gone, all of it. Gone!" Another Terran blast followed. A dreadnought split in two, its pieces drifting apart before dissolving into sparks. Panic filled the Empire fleet. Captains shouted conflicting orders. Some begged to retreat, others fired blindly into the void. Korvac gritted his teeth. "Keep firing, overwhelm them." But the Terran ships advanced, calm and silent, their circle tightening. Their weapons pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost alive. Each strike erased another Empire ship. The fleet that once filled the stars with power now looked small and desperate. "Admiral," cried the lieutenant, "if this continues, we will be destroyed. We must fall back." Korvac shook his head violently. "If we fall back, the Council will brand us cowards. We cannot return defeated. We must find a weakness." But the crew saw no weakness. Terran ships moved with impossible speed, appearing and disappearing like shadows. Some Empire officers swore the humans weren't piloting their ships at all, but that the vessels themselves were alive. Then something unexpected happened. The Terran voice spoke again, but this time it was different. There was no threat, no warning. It almost sounded curious. "Why do you test us?" "We gave you a chance to live," Korvac spat. "Because the Empire fears no one." The voice was silent for a long moment. Then it replied, "Then you will learn fear." The Terran ships shifted formation, and suddenly the Empire fleet was no longer surrounded, but trapped in a sphere of light. Every direction they looked, the void glowed faintly with strange energy. A prison woven from power beyond imagination. "Admiral," whispered the scientist, his voice breaking, "we are inside their containment field. We cannot escape." Korvac slammed his fists against the table. "Break it! Attack the barrier!" The fleet obeyed. Weapons fired again and again. Each strike disappeared against the glowing walls. The sphere pulsed once, and half the Empire's missiles detonated inside their launchers, tearing ships apart from within. Screams filled the comms. "They're controlling our weapons. They're using our own fire against us." Korvac stood frozen, his pride crushed by the weight of reality. The humans had not only returned, they had evolved into something untouchable. Every legend, every warning had been true. Then another twist. The Terran voice spoke not to Korvac alone, but across the entire fleet. "We do not want your empire, we do not want your war, but you entered our space. And now you must carry the truth back. One of you will survive. The rest will not." The officers turned to Korvac, their faces pale with horror. "One ship," someone whispered. "They will let only one ship leave." Before Korvac could speak, the sphere pulsed again. In perfect silence, Terran weapons struck. Ship after ship was erased, the comms filled with desperate screams. Voices begging for mercy, but none came. Within minutes, the Empire's great armada was reduced to a handful of burning wrecks. Only the flagship remained intact, surrounded by the glowing Terran fleet. Korvac fell to his knees, his pride broken. He whispered into the silence, "Why us? Why not end it all?" The human voice answered, calm and merciless. Because your arrogance must carry the warning, you will live to tell the galaxy. So they do not repeat your mistake. The Terran ships pulled back. The glowing sphere faded, leaving only the wreckage of the destroyed fleet. The path back through the void opened like a wound. Korvac's ship drifted alone. On the bridge, silence hung heavy. The survivors looked at one another. Pale and shaking, none spoke, because every soul knew the truth. They had not fought a battle, they had been judged. And as the flagship limped away from Terran space, the whispers began. Whispers that would soon spread through every world of the Empire. The humans were alive, stronger than ever, and their warning had been written in fire. The flagship limped away from the battlefield. Its engines flickered, its once proud hull scarred and broken. Inside the command deck, Admiral Korvac sat in silence, his eyes hollow. Around him officers whispered, but none dared to speak loudly. The weight of what they had seen pressed on every heart. The comms crackled with faint voices from scattered survivors, but one by one those voices fell silent. Only the flagship remained, a single ship out of thousands. The Terran voice still echoed in their minds. "One will survive to carry the warning," Korvac gritted his teeth. "They let us go on purpose," he muttered. "Not because we won, but because they wanted us to crawl back in shame." The lieutenant, pale and shaking, looked at him. "Sir, what will we tell the council?" Korvac's eyes burned with humiliation. "We will tell them the truth," he said bitterly, "that humans live, that their power is beyond anything the galaxy has seen, and that our arrogance doomed us." Before the crew could respond, alarms rang again. The bridge shuddered. "Admiral, something is following us," cried the navigator. "It's fast. Oh, faster than anything we've recorded on the display." A Terran ship appeared, larger than the others they had faced. Its hull shimmered with strange energy, ancient yet alive. It closed the distance without effort, and then stopped, hovering just outside their weapon range. "Why are they still here?" whispered the weapons officer. "They already destroyed us. Why follow?" The comms opened. The same human voice returned, calm but sharper now. "You are not finished. You will carry the warning, but you will also see what awaits those who ignore it." Korvac straightened, rage flickering through his fear. "We have already lost everything. What more do you want?" The voice replied. "To show you what your empire has truly awakened." The Terran ship turned slowly. Its engines glowed, and the stars around it seemed to bend. Without choice, the flagship systems locked on, pulling them forward as if dragged. The crew struggled at the controls, but nothing worked. They were being forced deeper into Terran space. "Admiral," the lieutenant whispered, "we cannot stop it." "They are controlling us." "Then let them," Korvac growled. "We are already ghosts." The darkness ahead shifted. At first it seemed empty. Then, like shadows peeling back, shapes emerged. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of Terran ships. They stretched across the void in every direction, silent and unmoving. An armada greater than anything the galaxy had imagined. The officers gasped. Some fell back in their chairs. "This is impossible," one muttered. "How can this many exist? How have we never seen them?" The human voice spoke again. But now it carried a strange weight. "For centuries you called us dead, forgotten, weak. We did not die, we did not vanish, we waited. We rebuilt in silence while your empire grew fat and arrogant," Korvac whispered to himself. They were never gone. The Terran ship guided the flagship into the center of the formation. The alien officers stared at the colossal warships surrounding them. Each one radiated power, their weapons glowing with silent threat. It was as if the stars themselves had been replaced by human steel. "Why show us this?" Korvac demanded, though his voice shook. "If you wanted us destroyed, you could have done it already. Why reveal your strength?" the voice answered. "Because the galaxy must understand. The age of pretending we are myths is over. You will carry this sight back to your council. You will tell them what you saw, and when they laugh, when they mock you, they will know the truth too late." The crew sat frozen. Their minds struggled to hold the image of such overwhelming power. Some officers whispered prayers, others wept silently. Suddenly, one of the Terran ships moved forward. Larger than the rest, its design was different, older. its hull marked with scars from ancient battles. It drifted closer until its shadow fell over the Empire flagship. The comms filled with a second human voice, deeper, more commanding. Your Empire is not the first to test us. Many came before. Believing themselves mighty, all fell. Your arrogance has awakened the old guardians. And now we watch again. Korvac felt the air leave his chest. He finally understood. These were not just warships. They were relics of humanity's forgotten wars. Preserved and waiting, one officer whispered, "Admiral, what if they march on the galaxy? What if this is the beginning of conquest?" The human voice answered as if it had heard. "We do not seek conquest, but we do not forgive trespass. The galaxy will leave us in peace, or it will burn." The Terran fleet pulsed. Weapons glowed brighter. For a moment, the Empire crew thought they would all be destroyed. But instead, the lights dimmed. The massive ships began to turn, drifting back into the dark like titans retreating to sleep. The guiding Terran vessel released its hold, and the Empire flagship floated free once more. Battered and small among the endless void, the human voice spoke one last time. "Go carry our message. Tell your masters what arrogance has cost. Terran space is forbidden not by decree, but by survival." Then in silence, the Terran fleet vanished, one by one. Their ships dissolved into shadows until nothing remained but empty stars. It was as if they had never been there, except for the scars carved into the minds of those who witnessed it. Korvac sat heavily in his chair. His crew stared at him, waiting. His voice cracked but carried a weight they had never heard before. "Set course for the Empire. We return not as victors, but as messengers. And may the Council tremble when they hear the truth." The flagship turned, engines humming weakly. It carried with it the broken pride of an empire and the shadow of a warning that would soon spread across every corner of the galaxy. The Empire's flagship limped into the central docks, its hull broken, its engines weak. Crowds gathered to watch, whispering in disbelief. This was supposed to be the grand fleet that had left with pride and fire. Thousands of ships had gone, and only one had returned. Inside the council chamber, silence stretched as Admiral Korvac stood before the nobles. His uniform was torn, his eyes hollow. Behind him, the surviving officers stood like shadows. The High Chancellor leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Where is the fleet, Admiral? Where is our victory?" Korvac's voice was low but steady. "There is no victory, there is no fleet, we were destroyed." Gasps filled the chamber. Nobles whispered to one another, some angry, some afraid. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "Destroyed by whom? You faced only shadows. Did you flee? Did you betray us?" Korvac's jaw tightened. "We faced the humans. They are alive. They are stronger than you ever imagined. We did not fight them. We were judged. And they let us live only to carry a message." The chamber erupted. Voices rose in anger. "Lies," shouted one lord. "Humans are myths," said another. "This man is a coward. He seeks to cover his shame." Korvac slammed his fist against the table, his voice cutting through the noise. "I saw them, we all did. A fleet greater than the stars themselves. Weapons beyond reason. Ships that erased us with a single strike. You think them myths, but they are real, and they wait in the dark." The Chancellor sneered. "Do you expect us to tremble because you bring stories of ghosts? You disgrace the Empire, Admiral. Your fear has broken you." At that moment, one of Korvac's surviving officers stepped forward, her voice shaking. "It is not fear, it is truth. I saw our strongest dreadnought cut apart like paper. I heard their voices, they warned us to leave. They let us go so that we could tell you, and if you ignore them, they will come." The council chamber grew tense. Some nobles looked pale, others still laughed. But beneath the surface, unease spread like fire. A messenger rushed into the hall. Breathless, "High Chancellor, urgent reports. Fleets across the border have vanished. Patrols sent into Terran space do not return. Traders whisper of shadows swallowing ships whole." The chamber fell silent. The Chancellor's face hardened, but his hands trembled slightly. He turned back to Korvac. "If this is true, if the humans live, what do they want?" Korvac's eyes darkened. "They want nothing. They do not seek conquest. They do not seek your throne. They want only silence. They want to be left alone. But if you cross their space, if you test them again, they will burn this empire to ash. The nobles shifted uneasily. For the first time in centuries, fear of something greater than themselves settled in their hearts. But arrogance still clung to some. A warlord rose, his armor gleaming. I do not believe your tales if the humans are so strong. Why did they not destroy you all? Why spare you? Why leave a single ship to crawl home? Korvac's voice was heavy. Because they wanted you to know. They wanted you to hear the warning from your own people, not from rumor. They wanted the galaxy to remember why Terran space is forbidden. The warlord scoffed. Then I will see for myself. I will take my fleet and test these humans, and when I return victorious, the Empire will know who truly leads it. Murmurs spread. Some cheered. Others looked horrified. Korvac shook his head. You will not return. You will lead your men into death. The humans will not warn you twice, but arrogance burned brighter than reason. The warlord stormed out, calling for his fleet. The council chamber dissolved into chaos. Some demanded retreat. Others demanded conquest. The chancellor tried to hold order, but fear gnawed at even his iron heart. Later, Korvac stood on the docks with his lieutenant, watching as the warlord's ships prepared to launch. The lieutenant whispered, "They will not listen. They will repeat the mistake." Korvac's voice was bitter. "Yes, and when they fall, perhaps the Empire will finally believe." The warlord's fleet left in fire and pride, thousands of soldiers cheering, believing they would crush the myth. The city celebrated their departure, trying to mask its fear with noise. Days later, silence returned. No signals, no survivors. Only empty stars. Then, across the Empire, fragments of wreckage began to appear on drifting satellites, shattered pieces of once proud ships. And the whispers grew louder in the council chamber. The Chancellor's hands shook as he listened to the reports. "They erased them," he whispered. As they erased the others, Korvac stood once more before the council, his voice steady. "You doubted me, now you have your proof. The humans do not boast, they do not bluff. They are the storm you cannot fight," a noble cried out. "Then what do we do? Do we bow to them? Do we surrender our pride?" Korvac's eyes burned with cold fire. "You do nothing. You stay away, you live. If you do not, then this empire will not survive another century. They will erase us." As they erased the fleets before us, the council chamber trembled with silence. The pride of the empire cracked. Its arrogance, once unshakable, began to collapse under the weight of truth. For the first time, they faced an enemy not to conquer, but to fear, and in the shadows of space, beyond their reach, the humans waited, silent and patient. Terran space remained forbidden, not by law, but by power too great to challenge. The warlord's fleet never returned. Wreckage drifted in the void, torn and burned. Proof of human wrath scattered across trade routes like silent warnings. Whispers spread from system to system, carried by frightened merchants and wandering scouts. "The humans live," they said, "and they are stronger than ever." In the Empire's capital, the council chamber echoed with panic. Nobles shouted over one another. "We must raise more fleets," one cried. "We must seal our borders," another shouted. The High Chancellor slammed his hand against the table. "Silence," he roared, but even his voice carried fear. Admiral Korvac stood once more before them, his uniform worn, his eyes hollow yet fierce. "You cannot fight them," he said, his voice steady. "You cannot outnumber them. You cannot outgun them. We tried and we were erased. The warlord tried and he vanished. They do not seek to rule you. They do not march to conquer. They only demand silence. Leave them alone, or we all perish." The council chamber shook with anger and denial. Some nobles shouted, "Coward," others spat, "Lies," but their voices faltered when more messengers arrived. Pale and breathless, more fleets have gone missing. Patrols sent near Terran space are gone. Outposts on the border have gone silent. Their systems erased overnight. The Chancellor's face turned ashen. "Then it is true," he whispered. "The humans will not allow us near." But even as the council argued, the whispers spread beyond the Empire. Other civilizations heard the stories. Some laughed. "Humans are myths," they said. Others trembled, remembering old tales passed down through generations, stories of a species born on a death world, stories of rage and fire in distant star systems. Leaders gathered in secret councils. If it is true, one alien elder said, then the galaxy stands at a crossroads. If we challenge them, we risk destruction. If we respect them, perhaps we survive. Another leaned forward, his voice heavy, but arrogance blinds the Empire, and their pride may drag us all into ruin. Meanwhile, in the Empire's great academies, young officers whispered in the halls. We should have listened, some said. The warnings were clear. Terran space was forbidden for a reason, others, fueled by pride, muttered, if we build stronger weapons, perhaps we can match them, but none truly believed it. The image of ships vanishing in silence lingered like a shadow in every mind. One night, as the council argued, the lights in the chamber flickered, a deep hum shook the air, and the comm screens turned black. Panic spread, officers scrambled at controls. It's not a malfunction, cried one. This is something else. The chamber filled with silence. Then a voice echoed across the room, cold, steady, unmistakably human. You were warned, it said. You were given mercy. And yet you send more fleets. You test our patience. Every noble froze. Their pride crushed beneath the weight of that voice. The Chancellor stood trembling. We hear you. What do you want from us? The voice answered. We want nothing but silence. Stay out of our space. Speak no lies of our death. Send no fleets, send no scouts. If you do, we will end your empire in a single night. The chamber shook with fear. Some nobles cried out, they are here, they are listening to us. Others fell silent. Afraid even to breathe, Korvac stepped forward, his voice hard. Enough of your pride. Do you not see? They could kill us all right now. They speak not to conquer, but to warn. We must obey, or we are already dead. The voice faded, and the screens returned to normal, but the silence remained heavy. The nobles could not meet one another's eyes. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt small. Days passed. The Chancellor issued decrees. Terran space is forbidden, he announced. No fleet, no scout, no citizen shall cross its borders. This is the law of survival. His words spread across the Empire, but they carried no strength. Only fear held the people in place. Across the galaxy, others listened. Some respected the warning, pulling their ships back from the borders. Others grew curious, driven by greed or pride. They whispered, if humans have such power, perhaps we can steal it. Perhaps we can learn their secrets, but the galaxy soon learned. A trading vessel that strayed too close vanished. A pirate fleet that tested the boundary disappeared. Whole colonies that ignored the warnings fell silent overnight. No debris, no signal, only emptiness where once there had been life. The lesson spread like fire. The galaxy trembled. For the first time in ages, fear bound worlds together. Not fear of the Empire, not fear of war, but fear of the silent humans who had returned. Korvac walked through the docks one evening, watching as citizens stared at the stars with both awe and terror. His lieutenant joined him, her voice quiet. Do you think they will march on us? Do you think they will come? Korvac shook his head. No, they do not need to march. Their silence is enough. They have shown us what happens when arrogance defies them. They do not conquer, they wait. And waiting is more terrifying than any war, the lieutenant whispered. Then this is the end of the Empire. Korvac's eyes burned with grim fire. No, this is the beginning of truth. The Empire thought itself eternal, but now it has learned humility. The humans have reminded us that power does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and that whisper is louder than all our fleets combined. As the stars glimmered above, the galaxy shifted. The age of arrogance was ending, and in its place rose a new fear, a new respect. The humans had returned, and with their return came a silence that promised fire if broken. The Empire and the galaxy now lived under one unshakable truth. Terran space was not just forbidden, it was sacred ground, a warning written in the dark, and every being who looked to the stars at night knew the same thing. The humans were watching, and patience had its limits.